So today we are sitting chatting about depression. Yuck. Gory topic is so how did you guys know you were depressed? You haven't been depressed, level, of course.
Honestly, I don't know. What if I was, but I didn't realize? So maybe let's break that down. Then maybe I'll be like, actually, I probably went through that, and I didn't realize that it was actually, depression.
Do you know someone close to you who have actually come out and proclaimed that, hey, I'm depressed, or I've been diagnosed with depression?
No.
And then you could see the symptoms within yourself? No. Nothing. No. I mean, on my part, it's I actually didn't know. Again, I'm black, so in a black household, I think the reason we don't have depression talks is because there's not a word for depression. There's no what's depressed in Swati or Zulu
right.
What's depressed?
I don't
sadness.
Even know. What's sadness? Like extreme sadness.
Right.
Alright. So when I was going through it, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I didn't want to get out of bed, and I wanted anyone or anything away from me. That's when I don't know. I wouldn't say I knew that was depression, because I still wouldn't have known it was depression until we probably went out and started looking for outside help, which is not even black help, white help.
Yeah.
That was the only time where it's like, oh, you probably have you're probably suffering from what is called depression. Okay, but what is depression? What really is depression? And I think that's how I really found out. Once I started looking for help, because I was not myself. So obviously we go to doctors for if I'm sick, we go to GP or pediatrician for kids or whatever. So it's okay, I need psychological help because obviously I'm not physically sick. And then once I started exploring that, then did I really find out that, hey, I'm actually going through something called depression.
And actually just touching up on what Nonhle just spoke about, the symptom of always being sad. So I think my experience with depression was quite a while back, but it was not depression because it was a very not the typical depression where you're just sad and you're mopey all the time. I discovered I was depressed once that happened, but initially it always was very high sprung. I was consistently doing things where you could not keep me maintained. Still I was consistently a hyper mania of where you're dealing with a lot of psychological issues, but it's on a different spectrum where it's a mania that comes with it. And then I think there was a very big incident in high school where I'd worked super hard on something for 4 years thinking I was going to achieve this, and then it broke me. And then I was so sad afterwards. But it seeped out to more than just this one incident, because I was just consistently sad, 3 days, 4 days, a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months, I'm failing school, and I've always gotten straight A's. It was the first time I got a C in class. My parents are now freaking out. I'm not talking to anybody. I was even suicidal at that point but I just didn't know, like you say, we don't have the vocabulary for it at home where you can say,
this is the problem.
This is what I'm going through. You're just sad. And everybody's like, hey.
You're just I'm not myself. I don't know what it is, but I'm just
not myself. Not myself. And I remember going in and just crying. I went to a teacher of mine, actually. I left class this one day, and I still remember it so vividly. I left class, and I just cried. I cried because I could not stop crying when I was depressed. And then I just was I don't know why I'm always crying, though. And that's when I was like, okay, this is just not me. Miss Happy-Go-Lucky, who wants to do everything all the time, is now suddenly crying in a bathroom and cannot speak to anybody. And for me, I didn't even speak to my parents, and my parents didn't even know how to support me. Initially, it was just I went to school, and we had a psychologist on campus. So I went there, and I was like, I'm always crying, this is how I'm feeling. And she did a 10-question test, or a pre-diagnosis test, where then she was like, oh, it seems to me you've got all these signs and it might be depression.
And you know what's crazy about depression is that it's not like you have a blood test and it's oh, you have this hormone and that hormone, this is too high, that's too low, and that's why, they say it's a chemical imbalance, but it's a chemical imbalance within the brain or the mind, the brain. But there's no blood test, so the only way they re-diagnose you with depression is through questions. So you could take the test on your most saddest day. You're not depressed, obviously. Depression is a consistent thing. But you could take it on your birthday and you could come out depressed just on that particular day. That's the crazy part about it.
But there is also various spectrums of it, because what they'll tag it as, there's like mild depression where you've got like there's severe, and what spectrum you're on, so they know how to treat you and how to diagnose you and how to move from there, right?
Yeah. How did you guys move from there though? Like after you, first of all, kudos to you for even seeking the help. You did that, and then it's like, what was the way forward? Do they give you like a 10-step guide, or like, because I want to understand it in like practical sense. How do you then go forward and say, okay, I know what it is, now I'm going to deal with it accordingly?
Like we live in an age of technology. Before you even go to a doctor, oh dude, like just by having a cough, for instance, like, oh my gosh, I have TB, I have infection, I have lung infection, I have this, like I got bronchitis, like everything, So obviously, being the millennials that we are, our first resort to any sort of thing in terms of trying to extract information is the internet. So it's like, okay, and then what do I have? Okay, what is depression? Google. Okay, how do you go about curing this sickness, inverted commas, sickness? It's not a sickness. And then they'll be like, oh, see a psychologist or take some antidepressants. It should be prescribed to you. But then that goes according to that test that you have. And then if it's severe, they could prescribe you some antidepressants. But if it's mild, something just like having to see a psychologist, which is what I went to. Was she a psychologist? No. She was not a social worker, not a psychologist. What's the other one?
Counselor?
A therapist?
A therapist. It's a counselor, therapist, counselor.
Yeah. Psychologist, therapist.
She wasn't a psychologist. She didn't put herself out as a psychologist. I remember her name clearly. Too bad I can't say it. And it was the worst experience. Like, for me, it did not help me at all. I loved going in the sense that naturally I don't know how to talk. I don't talk. I don't know if you guys even notice. I barely talk. Even like when you guys are all happy and you're all your energy buzzed, like great, be you. And I don't want to take away from you with my silence. But naturally, I don't talk. I don't know how to talk. And sitting there, it was just like I was like, oh shit. In my head, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna have a psychologist. Okay, I'm gonna tell him to lay on the couch.
Get my life.
I'm like, just help me get my life together. And when I got there, it was stiff. It was cold. It was like sitting there, and they have to write things about you, even though it's like, what are you writing? You know? But it's like they have to write things about you. So there isn't that relationship. But I went and I saw this psychologist, counselor, therapist lady, and I don't know. I left, I think after 3 sessions being with her, I'm just like, I'm not, maybe I should have been more patient, but I know that I can help myself. I've always known that the cure to every single thing that I go through is myself. So, but then, because it's my first time experiencing this, okay, let me get the psychologist. And then, after those 3 sessions, I was just like, I can help myself. I'm not getting the help or what I feel I'm supposed to be getting from this lady. So let me try and help myself. And I can't say that from a psychologist's point of view. We'll get to the rest of how I actually eventually got through it. It was helpful, but I mean, I won't quickly dismiss it.
I actually have to jump in on that, where mine was very counter-reactive. So when they said to me I should do therapy, my advisor said to me, do antidepressants first though, because when you go to therapy depressed, therapy is not good for you. When you're depressed already, you're sad, you're mopey, you're longing, it's not a frame of mind where you now want to chit chat about what you're going through, right? And so traditionally you think, let me send this person to a psychologist, they guys will fix it. But because, like we discussed, depression is a hormonal imbalance. You having a conversation doesn't fix what I'm going through hormonally. So for me, what they started with was antidepressants, where I think I took antidepressants for 3 months, for two weeks without any therapy, without anything. Took just antidepressants. But what that did is it helped my serotonin, which is the hormone that affects you. Right, which is the hormone that affects you. So it helped my serotonin get to a level where I could actually engage in a conversation. And so when I went for therapy, I started being way more vocal and being able to communicate and being able to actually say, oh, this is what I was going through. So I found therapy very, very helpful from the get-go. From the get-go, though, there was so much that was so convoluted, right? Where it was just a blab session. And then through each and every session, it got deeper, it got more intense. I used to always tell my parents that it's very exhausting. Like therapy, I think the movies have us believing you'll come out there feeling, oh, I'm in therapy. Yes,
No,
I've got
it's
this,
not
I've
like
got this.
that.
I mean, through therapy, I had to deal with why I was bulimic. I had to deal, and it was very hard-felt things where even you as a person don't know why you do particular things. And so with therapy, it was really having a mirror where I was facing so many things. I'd always just go there feeling so just tired afterwards, because I'd either be crying and I'd either have to have courageous conversations afterwards. It was a very beautiful process in the end, but through it, it was not
was the most.
fix my life. It was very much, crap, man, this is hard. This is really, really hard, and I'm just exhausted. But I went through it like Nonhle said. She said, you went for 3 sessions, right? I took therapy for about 8 months. So almost a full year, because you definitely have to give it time. In the beginning, this person's a stranger. You don't know them. It's not like you're allowed to, like, hey, Ben, you know, it's a person that you need to build a sort of trust system as well. And I went to 3 different therapists in the beginning, because the first one just didn't work. So I moved to a different therapist, and that didn't work until I found the right therapist who was like, okay, I think this can happen. I think I'm in the right space. So also giving it that time to be able to move around and see what actually works for me, because not every therapist is the same. These are human people.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. You have to be either you were at school already
Yes.
when you started this. I was at home, and we were not in our most best financial positioning at the time. And so there was no, okay, Stoksita, we're gonna help you now. I'm from my therapist or my psychologist, like 3 or 4, and then cancer, you know, that's all money. And on top of that, I'm not a medical aid. And maybe I could have been to a government institution looking for a therapist, but that just didn't cross my mind. And my parents, them trying to give me the best service there is, obviously it's like, okay, we'll help you. After my 3rd session, I actually recall, and it was just like, like so like just fix yourself, you know, like everything will be fine. But at the same time, still very supportive. Like, this is our situation financially, but it's costing us, but we still want to help you. Is there no way you can help yourself as well? Like, my mom, she's always been this person, just get out of it, get out of it. Like, come on, girl. And she'd always try and put this happy, positive energy, you know. But
no one can really understand it because they're not going through it like you are.
no, that's true, but finance really plays a huge role.
I completely agree.
Like, I could never have afforded to go to counseling, and I wasn't at school at the time, I was at home, so I could never go to counseling for a month, like make it even three days a week. I wouldn't be able to have done that.
Yeah, no, I agree, because my I must say it was 800 per session.
Yeah.
So it's no joke. It's literally you taking out 1,000 for somebody's hour. It's not. It really is if you're on the luckier spectrum of where I was. And looking at my financial situation now, I probably wouldn't have had that. It was just such a different time when my mom was working, and you know, I had the luxury of being like, let me go talk to somebody, you know. So yeah, you talked a lot about your family. How did your family react to you saying you were depressed?
Dude, like, they were properly taken aback. Like, what in the actual fuck is happening? Like, I can remember their faces. Like, it's just bland. Like, in the actual fuck.
Like, it's not registering. They don't get it.
Yeah, it's never happened in any of one of them's families, and so they've never known even how to react. They've never been trained. So we all know how to react to death, right? It's like, oh, Nema. Like, from a far distance, you know, then the closer it gets, the reaction changes, because we've all experienced it, right? So now imagine having to learn how to react to something that is happening for the first time.
Exactly.
Obviously we all know it's bad, you know, but like, it's like, shit, my
Just
child.
like, are you serious?
Yeah, is my child depressed? Yeah, are you serious? Or shit, is my child depressed? What the fuck is that? Like, you know, and like I said earlier on, my mom was always like, girl, get out of it. Like, I remember even, I don't know, I think I've always been pessimistic. So I think my mom always thought that, no, she's just having one
of those bad days or something.
So their reaction was more like, they don't know what is this, and they just, it was tricky because I was never there. You know, they'd be like, don't you always in your room, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Like, I'm gonna come to, oh my gosh, like, I'm thinking about it now. Like, I was so mean.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was really mean. But I think they reacted the best they could. Your
Right.
mom cares about you, your dad cares about you, so it's always like, what's happening? What's happening? Even though it's the most annoying question at the time, but like, what's going on with you? Are you okay?
And then how do we help you? You know.
Yeah.
That's the good part. It's a kudos for them to be like, okay, fine, you've identified that there's a problem or whatever. Let's help you with it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very different, hey, because my grandma, so I was living with my grandma at the time. It was just me and her. And my grandma's like very, very different to me. I'm very bubbly, happy-go-lucky, chirp all the time. Grandma's very subdued. She loves to listen. She's always checking on me. How's your day? And we always have our coffee because I'm got great news. She's always like, which is a great blend of the person who wants to talk and the person who wants to listen. I'm like, how bad can it become? But then, because she's always just been the listener, she didn't have any skills that said, oh, now I know what to do and how this is what I'm going to do for her. And she actually called around. My grandma was so supportive, and she didn't even ask me too many times how I'm doing. She could just see that this is not her granddaughter. So she called my aunt, she called my uncle, she got a lot of my family involved. So it wasn't just her who was checking up on me. My uncle was calling me, my mom was calling me, this person was calling me. Everybody was like giving me ample amounts of love and amounts of care, and it was coming from so many directions where even when I was just like, okay guys, just leave me alone, eventually I budged, because I was just like, everybody's always on my case. And I remember my mom went through something very similar, but for her they didn't call it depression. But when I spoke to her and I was telling her what I'm going through, she said, hey, I dealt with this when I was a kid. Nobody knew how to handle it, but I've seen it in our family a lot. I think you're depressed. I think this is what, and this was now post me going and speaking to the therapist at school who had said I was depressed. Even my mom was like, I think the lady at school is right. I'm here. I've got the resources to help you. I'm going to be dealing with this with you because I can see symptoms of what you were going through. And I remember how I felt. Yes, they didn't label it as depression, but I think now looking back, I definitely was depressed, and I know what it's like, and I know how you're feeling right now. So for me, it was very much of, even when they didn't understand it, they just supported me. They were just like, you know, and nobody, and it was such a very different experience, because nobody ever in my family was like, get over it or happy-go-lucky. Instead, my grandma would be like, do you want us to go buy food? Do you want us? She was very,
it's like, tell me what to do.
Yeah,
so
she looked for other ways of soothing my pain, even if she wasn't the person I was gonna, you know, she.
I mean, it's not like they don't do that, you know.
Yeah,
I feel like any caring parent.
It definitely.
Do that, yeah.
No, for me that was it. And so my mom had gone through something very similar, and so she was just like, "This is what you have. This is how we're dealing with it." And I think it's for parents, it's such a different struggle. Like I think you hit the nail on the head, Nonhle, when you in the beginning when you said, in our culture, it's just not a known phenomenon. We just don't have a word for this. So it leaves a lot of parents feeling disempowered. Because I remember I had a conversation with my aunt, and she's like, "Oh, depressed again. This is such a fashion movement. It's so cool to be depressed. Everybody's depressed."
Like, depression is only rich people can afford to be depressed.
You know, it was like, it's such a trend. Are you really depressed, or is it just like a fashion statement? Everybody's depressed. I'm like, really?
It's really, but it's crazy, right? If you think about it, in the black community, I was at doing my first year at UCT last year, and out of all the people who died, who committed suicide, and say, I'll just give an average number of 10 people, they were all black.
Listen to that.
They were all black. And I don't know if it's because if we all go, as humans, we all experience the same amounts of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's not a spoken about thing back at home, people feel like they need to deal with it on their own, you know. It's crazy, man. Like, you just, all you need, like the first step into your recovery is just having someone to talk to. Lord, please be it someone that you are naturally someone who can speak and open up to people. Because me, like, literally, I die within myself. I'm very silent. I don't speak. But then at the same time, I know that I'm the one person who can help myself. So what do? I start at the gym. I was telling someone earlier today, oh, you're sad. Go to the gym. Like, go to the gym. You'll be sad at the gym, and you'll be running on the treadmill, you'll be sad, you'll be lifting those weights, you'll be so sad, you know. But then somehow you're able to clear your mind and not actually think about anything at the gym. Now I think about time. Oh, I have to burn 200 calories by 20 minutes, for instance, you know. And that becomes like, whoa, I haven't been thinking about this thing that actually makes me sad. And so you have exercising do?
It changes your hormones.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Your hormones. You
Endorphins.
actually produce, is it oxytocin or something
Yeah,
like that?
oxytocin. It increases, and these are the hormones that you need. The certain hormones that you need to increase when you're feeling a certain
certain way to like lift your mood.
Exactly. First step to recovery: try and talk to someone. Like, literally try and talk. If you're starting like me, like I really think that go to the gym. Like, there you actually have time to actually talk to clear your path, to clear your mind of everything else that's making you sad, and be able to hear your voice and talk to yourself like, oh, don't you go, run, you almost said don't give up. Like, literally, that's you talking to you, even if you're not talking about that, but you're talking. You need to talk. Like, you need to talk.
Actually, jumping on that, another form of talking is journaling. Right. You know, like sometimes for me, I'm not, I'm a chirpy person, but I am very calculative of what I talk to with certain people.
Of course.
Like, there's certain things I'll just never discuss, that I'll just mine, and there's certain things that I'm like, yeah, cool, we want to talk about business, sure, let's do that, you know. But I journal a lot. I keep a lot of my things. I try to make it a routine, because it's like a check-in with myself. It's that conversation where I don't feel comfortable and safe enough to be vulnerable in front of certain people. But I'll keep my journal and I'll write it down and I'll capture that, and I'll say, okay, this is what I'm going through, and this is where I'm at, and how can I best position myself moving forward. So definitely on that, talk to yourself and find different ways of talking to yourself. I completely agree with that.
And when you do start talking to other people, like for instance opening up to your mom and maybe a few close friends, and you realize how they respond and that they're actually very supportive of your situation, next time when you are feeling depressed and maybe going through severe depression and you're suicidal, you know that these people can actually understand what you're saying, because you've actually opened a conversation about this, you know, and let them understand how severe it can get. So like for instance, when I'm sad now, feeling really sad or thinking I'm going to get into depression, yes, the first person I talk to is myself. But then I go to my mom and I'm like, girl, it's happening. It's happening.
Make the things to make it go away.
Yeah. You know, and at that time when she does her get together, like it's like, but it's also like, yes, you're right, man. Like, and when I hang up that phone call, it's just like, I gotta smile. Like, that's the first step. It's okay, I can feel good. Even when I'm feeling like this, I can feel good. This is how I want to feel. So let me take steps towards feeling like that.
Actually, touching upon that, I don't know if you experienced this in your like process of recovery, I'll call it. For me, just so I went through antidepressants. I took them, went through therapy, took that. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I think I'm okay. I think I've resolved a lot of the things that were eating me up inside and that were triggering this depression. I've spoken to my grandma, because for me, my depression was really triggered from at home, my weight, and always being called fat as a kid, and always being told I'm ugly, and I had low self-worth, and there was a lot that I tried to compensate by being very high sprung at school, achieving a lot of things to say, you know what, even if I'm validated, even if I'm fat and even if I'm ugly, at least I'm still smart, at least I'm still this. And so after therapy, I dealt with a lot of that, but I got to a point where I was switching off to now I'm weaning off I should mention this point. If you are taking antidepressants, you can't just wake up the next day and be like, I'm done. It's not painkillers, because psychologically it was picking up a particular hormone. So when you're weaning off antidepressants, they'll put you like on a weaning off program where you'll start to take them less, once a week, it will break down so your system can now actually adjust on its own. But I had a lot of issues of always being afraid that I was going to get depressed again. Like, I could not handle sadness for a little while after that, because every time I was sad, I was like, oh my god, I'm getting depressed, it's happening. I had so many issues, and I don't know whether you felt that as well, where you were always afraid to be sad, because you were just like, I could be depressed at this point, I don't want to be sad because I could be depressed. And it was such a back and forth with my mind, with coming back to terms of being like, you're human.
Right, because you obviously know the difference between like this, just like the general sadness you feel because of certain things, and like, okay, no, I'm going back to that place where I don't want to be anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, my triggers, I think it also has to come, like, when you go through depression and you go through that whole thing, like that whole, I don't know what to call it, but you go through that whole depression phase. Now you understand that you're prone, you're someone who's likely to get depression, right? So you need to understand the triggers. Like Gigi just mentioned now what her triggers were. Like for mine, my triggers were I like to think of my depression as a spiritual awakening. So I was at Vega, doing a BCom, trying to fit into this whole world that I really don't feel I'm part of, even though at the time I haven't really defined who I am and what kind of person I want to be positioned as in other people's minds, you know. But I'm at Vega doing a BCom. My mom's so happy. Everyone's just so happy that I'm doing this BCom. You know, it's all about the BCom. And I'm just like, I'm so tired. I felt like being at Vega forced me to fit into a social bracket that I don't like. I didn't understand why I had to try and fit into the whole BCom, so I'll get like a good paying job, I'll be respected, you know, as a black female in corporate, doing so well, money, you know. And I was just like, I don't think I know actually. I just couldn't tell my parents. That what also ate me up. I couldn't tell my parents that, hey, I'm not the child that you want me to be. I'm not the child that you want me to be. I remember I even wrote them a note, why I want to leave Vega. Why I want to leave Vega. So then that came with me questioning a lot of things that I did and a lot of things that society put me in. And that made me also clear out the space around being a human entity and being a soul. And those are two different things. So then I realized that as a human, there's certain things I'm meant to do regardless of whether I want to or not. I'm going to be doing the rat race regardless of whether I want to or not. I was born, I have to go to school, I have to get a job, I have to do all these things, I have to make my parents happy. I hate being human. I hate it. It frustrates me. I get tired of it. I don't want to be. If it was up to me, I'd opt not to be human. But unfortunately, I have to come in this form to make sense to the rest of you guys and do whatever it is that my soul has to do. So then I felt during my depression, then I realized that I actually have a soul. And that's what I really am, my soul. But now how do I make the one into the other one? How do I make it like a one entity and not deprive the other of the, especially the soul being my most important one, you know. And that just ate me, guys. Like that just ate me, and that's how I understand my depression to be a spiritual awakening. Like understand your triggers. It's so important for people to understand what triggers your depression. Because now, if I feel sad, I'll be like, okay, you have to understand why you're feeling sad. So it's like, oh fuck, I didn't do so well in my assignments. Okay, fine, good enough reason to be sad. But if one day we have Wuga, or a week you've now analyzed, because you are your best friend or should be your best friend. You've analyzed that this past week you've been waking up and you've been feeling like this, and like, you know, now you have to try and look at the triggers or certain things that have happened that have made you feel like this. You know, it could be anything. You know, you have to understand why you feel like this. And obviously, I don't know, people get depressed from breakups and shit like that, but it's like the world's too real to be sad. I know, but
be
like,
sad, but
how
not
do you
depressed,
tell the difference between being extremely sad and depressed?
Yeah,
or is depressed being extremely sad?
For me, I definitely think there's a difference. Like, depression is very long-stated sadness where you can even feel like everything is being debilitated because of this, and you're feeling like I cannot get out of this. You want to get out, but you cannot get out, and you just like cringing. Whereas being sad, you're like, dog, I just had such a messed up week. Yeah. I'm just like, nochal, I'm just mad and I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm hurting, you know. But it's not now, you can't go to work. You are suddenly failing. You are suddenly losing out on life. When your sadness starts to affect how you're living and how you're functioning as a proper human, I think that's when you should definitely start to get worried about, like, this might not be, you know.
So last question before we actually give out like help lines to people, where would you say you are on your discovery journey now? Your
recovery journey. I mean, for me, I really do think it was very situational. Like, I knew it had to happen, and I always look back and I'm so glad it happened in my teens. It forced me to like deal with a lot of things, I think, as adults. Like, I think when we're born into families, we inherit issues. Our parents are not like the most functional people. We are born in dysfunction. Like Nonhle said, you hate being human. Being human comes with so many dysfunctions where as a kid, you will fall into picking up something, right? Sooner or later, whether you're 30, whether you're 18, you're going to have to deal with it. Mine just forced me to deal with it at that particular time. And I could not have been more thankful to the universe and the higher powers that be that it happened that time, because it set me up for such a different 20s. I lost, like for me, once I dealt with my depression, I lost 20 kgs. I started going to the gym. I started taking care of myself in such a more holistic manner, because it was, like Nonhle says, it was her spiritual awakening. For me, it was a journey of love. It was a journey of loving who I am, fat and all. I even told my grandma, I was like, you've got to understand that when somebody's fat, they are unhealthy. It's not that they're ugly. When you're fat, you're just unhealthy, and that's it. It's got nothing to do with who you are, your beauty, your worth. Your weight does not equal how amazing you are. You've always got that, regardless if you're 30 kgs heavier than you should be. So for me, my journey right now, definitely on a very, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not doing therapy. I'm not taking any antidepressants. And I took antidepressants last when I was 18, so 4 years ago, 14 years, oops, old, 4 years ago. And I've just empowered myself with the right habits. I go to gym. I lost 20 kgs. I dealt with what was making me fat. I spoke to my parents. I reached out to them. I said, hey, I'm on this process and I need you guys to understand that you cannot do this. But I always also go back home now, and my grandma, who hates being fat, but is the fattest out of them all, I always say to her, you are killing yourself inside, because there's a lot of things you are dealing with about not feeling happy and about hating who you are, because there's a cognitive dissonance where you know that being fat for you means ugly, but yet you're still living in this ugly body. And so I always say to her, you've got to empower yourself. And so I've turned my story into saying, how can I help others, and how can I be more sensitive when people say, hey, I'm depressed, I've been through that. So how can I not just be like, tap on the shoulder, get over it, Benji, you'll be okay, you know? So that's where I am in my journey.
Yeah. I know, because mine is like a soul and human battle, which will forever be.
So it was a constant battle. Yeah.
I can't say I still experience the same severity of depression like I did when I was 20, 21. I don't experience that. However, I'm not done. It's not done with me. It comes and it goes, and I just know how to deal with it. And I know from the second I get, it's like, hey, I'm extremely sad right now. I'm getting depressed right now. You know, I know this, and just like, oh shit, should I let it take me? Oh fuck, I'm so sad. Fuck it. Like, I'm gonna be depressed for 2 days, for a week, a month. I'm depressed. But because I understand what it is, and it's just never ending. It's a spiritual thing, my human and soul battle. I just know how to handle it. Really, I just go to the gym. That's where it starts. Go to the gym and meditation. Number one, best friends for me. Where I'm able to silence my mind, and like again, it's not a love thing like you speak about. So it's like, oh no, speak words of love to yourself. It's not that. It's being human. It really is that, and I can't run away from it. You know. But I'll be able to tell my journey or story one day, and hopefully it will make sense to people that, hey, I've been going through depression in and out, like quick, like, and I don't need help. It's me who knows how to help themselves. Mind power, the power of my mind. I understand it, and I just need to exercise that, really. Otherwise, yeah, that's where I am, really.
And I do have to say though, from mine and Nonhle's perspective, I don't know if you want to sum it up like this. These are very mild forms of depression, because I think some people deal with a lot more that triggers it and goes into very severe and dark places. You've heard of people killing themselves, of people being super suicidal, of families falling apart. And so emphasis on people deal with different ranges. Sometimes it's so severe. Always find help, always seek out avenues of being able to empower yourself, even if your mind can't do it, because it's very like one thing to say, let my mind just sort it out. Even if you're feeling like, you know, I don't have the skills, speak to somebody.
And you'll be surprised how people can understand. People can understand. Even if people don't understand, they won't say anything to make you feel like they don't understand.
Make you feel worse. Yeah.
No, just be like, yeah, I feel you.
Let's hit him up with those lines.
All right, so how do you get help? Right.
So I know with South Africa, there's the SA hotlines. I'm gonna give you 3 today, and the one is depression, obviously. That's a 24-hour 365 hotline service, free of charge actually. So it's 0800-121314. And then the suicide line is 0800-567-567. And then obviously the emergency line that we all should know by now is 112.
I don't know the emergency line, but there's also other resources online that I used to use. I want to say it's called 7 Cup, and where you go, there's qualified psychologists who will help you create a profile, and then you'll just speak to them, and it's all online. They're not based in South Africa. They recruit from all over the world, but you'll have somebody to reach out to and actually talk to.
Is it free?
It's free.
Okay. For anyone outside of...
I used to use it when I was in South Africa.
Okay.
So it's a really cool platform of just talking to somebody, venting. They'll ask you how's your day, what you're going through, what symptoms, how can they best assist, and it's a cool way of just not having to talk to anybody so they can't come back and be like, yeah, I remember you were depressed, but you've got that anonymous now. You're anonymous.
And also you could just go to your local psychologist, like if you have like medical aid and stuff like that, so you could see like a professional in a private hospital. But if not, just go to your public hospital near you and just see if there's some counselor or psychologist who's willing to take on your issues. So but the rest you can just find on our page. We'll have this info all written out for you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Join us again.
Till next time.
Woo-hoo.